This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
So we're looking for minutes, missing minutes. Maybe we'll do that at the next meeting.
Let me go through the emails and see what I sent and what I didn't. I think I have them all except for, like, all written, except for that one very large public hearing during budget season that I still need to go back and rewatch that 3-hour meeting to take down everybody's name. I think other than that, I have them all written, but what I have sent out via email, I need to go check.
All right, we did get the November 9th minutes.
You did.
So I need a motion to approve, and you guys have to approve them because I wasn't here.
Well, actually, on that topic, could I make a motion first to amend those minutes? Because I included you as a present when you were not.
Okay,
Actually, I don't have those minutes.
November 9th?
Yeah. The last ones that I have are the September 9 for
Jeez.
Well, I don't know what to do. Well, then I'll tell you what. Tom, try to find which minutes are still not in, and we'll do them at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right, and we'll include November 9th.
Yes.
So we're not approving any minutes. The mayor's not here. She said she'd sign on. She's at a school superintendent search meeting. Public speak. Well, you're not public. You can't speak, so there.
Say whatever you want.
I guess you could if you want to talk about something not on the agenda.
Nope.
All right, these are easy, I think. But the mayor wanted to talk to the one. $53,539.59. You sure it's not 58 cents, Hadel? I don't know. This is the same money, the same amount every
59,
time.
yeah,
It's cool.
it's 59. It's every quarter. That's what
I was
happened.
kidding.
Oh, okay. I was like, what did I do wrong? I
You
had
never do anything.
no, that's not
Can
true.
we turn this down?
Yeah.
If we don't do this, Easthampton Media can't
Yeah,
function,
it's
so I guess we should
quarter.
do it.
Yeah.
Have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve
I'm
the
having a
pay.
hard time
Moved
hearing
by
you
Tom,
guys. Sorry.
second.
Second.
It's it's just your.
You can't hear me now?
I can hear you, but I can't.
Can you hear me?
It's not clear.
Second.
Oh, weird.
That's not the speaker,
Yeah.
is it? I could turn my
the
microphone
microphone.
up, maybe. Let me see. Noise cancellation is on. Does that help? Can you hear me any better?
No, it's still echoing,
No?
and sometimes it's scratchy noise. It's in the, whatever the system.
Well, that's just Dan's voice, I think.
I think the system is all weird too.
It's system. It's not us here.
Yeah, it might be a latency issue or something. We've still got the copper cable in here.
Well, anyway, we're dealing with the 53,000 and we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Aye.
Just say aye. They're all here. I like it when we're all here. Okay. The mayor wanted to talk to this one. I don't have a problem paying for this this is the $18,035.60.
Yes.
Out of cannabis to pay for the Mountain View School grand opening. You want to say anything to this, Hadel? Did you hear that? Did you want to say anything to this? She can't hear me. You hear me at all?
Hang on, I'm switching. Can you hear now?
I can hear you. Can
Yeah,
you hear me?
it's better. I think. I don't know what was wrong. I switched the microphone. Sorry, what were you saying? Were you saying something to me?
$18,035.60 out of cannabis for the Mountain View School grand opening.
Yeah.
Did you want to say anything? There is no issue from my point of view.
Yeah. We have looked into every, like, it has been requested by mayor. And we have approval from cannabis facilities that we can spend on any governmental unit. That gives us access to this money to spend on any legal appropriation, which we would do as a city.
For you guys, the opening, remember that big
Mhm.
opening? That's
Yeah.
what they pay for. Good, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my only thing here, I'm happy to pay for this. I'm happy to vote for this. I just want to put it on the record that if it's at all possible with these sorts of things, I'd sort of like to have these discussions about and like vote on how we're going to pay for these things before they happen. You know what I mean? Like if there's,
We can't.
well,
We could, but the mayor's the one who chooses how to pay for it.
yes. So I guess I just sort of,
What? Omar?
I think we can. Because it's the same like we have the authority to say no. So at the end of the day, when someone is gonna have an event like this one, the mayor have the authority to request to pay for X or Y funds. I 100% correct on that, and I know that, and to me that's okay. But maybe I'm gonna say this because probably comes on a big concern is using $18,000 for an event when the school department was short, or they claimed they was short in the budget to pay some services. I think the communication should be a bit better with the company.
I mean, I guess that's part of what I was saying. Just like when you do a thing where you go and you spend a lot of money like this and then come to us and say, hey, we spent a lot of money. Could you transfer some funds from this account to this account to cover it? It feels like there's not really as much of an opportunity for us as counselors to say whether we think that that's actually an appropriate use of that money. Because what are you going to
That's
do?
what this meeting's all about.
But what are you
cancel it.
actually going to do? Say no?
Yeah, you can. In
Sure,
fact, that's
but-
the only thing we can do. You're right,
But
once the appropriation's made,
Mhm.
which is the mayor's authority, our only authority is to say no or reduce it. We
Yes.
can do that. And if we
And-
said no, it's because we don't agree with the usage of this. I'm not saying that about this. But if we want to say we don't want to use this funds, can you come back to us with another? Or we could suggest, why not use free cash or stabilization or whatever, but we don't have the authority unless you want to have a private conversation with the mayor. But
What-
I think you're talking about some official way of doing it, and I don't see that. That's not allowed. Prior to the appropriation being
Okay,
put forward.
so
No?
let's just say we're talking about infrastructure projects, right?
Okay.
We frequently have them say, hey, we are hoping to do some repaving work. They have
Okay.
not already done the repaving work. They want to do the repaving work. And they come to us and they request an appropriation out of free cash or whatever, right? And then that goes to the repaving work being done. But if there were something about that repaving work that were for some reason to be objectionable to us, and I'm not saying that this is objectionable, this is simply a matter of process where I'm just stating that if there was something about that work that we felt that that should not be the priority, or that we felt that they were spending too much on it, or we felt like the way they were going about it was inappropriate, we would have an opportunity to comment on it before the work was done, as opposed to them spending money on the repaving work and then coming to us and saying, hey, we did some repaving, can we have some money to cover the costs of that repaving? I am not saying that the mayor does not have the absolute authority to do it this way. I am simply saying that as a member of this committee, when possible, it would be my preference that we discuss 5-figure expenditures before they happen and not after they happen, because it puts us in a somewhat awkward position as counselors where the money has been like all these food trucks, all of this stuff, the money's been spent, right? It's going to be a major problem if we were to vote no. Now, I would have voted yes if it happened ahead of time. That's not what I'm
But
saying.
along those lines, I hear what you're saying.
Mhm.
It's similar to the end of year budget deficits where they've already spent the money, but they're gonna run out of money, or they've run out of money, and we have to bring money in from reserve to cover it. In this case, And I think a lot of the appropriations we get, money's been spent, they have to find a way to pay for it. The mayor's job is to find that way. We can say, we'd rather you not do that. Now, in other words, what you're saying, if I understand it correctly, is can we be told ahead of time, we're going to need to pay for food trucks, pay for this. This is how I'm going to pay for it. And you want to have a discussion prior to that.
Right. It's not,
It'd
it
be
wasn't,
nice if we did that, but all I'm saying is she doesn't have to.
I'm not saying that she has to.
Okay.
What I am saying is that this was a known thing ahead of time, right? They planned this event. And in planning the event, they had to have some idea of what it was going to cost.
Mhm.
And they had to have some idea of where that money is going to come from. And I'm simply stating respectfully to all the people involved that as a matter of process, where possible, I think it would be better for us to have these things ahead of time, because if somebody were to feel like that was not necessarily an appropriate use of cannabis revenue, that would have been an easier conversation to have ahead of time. At this point, what are you really going to do? You know, I just like, what are you really going to do that it is not going to exacerbate existing fiscal issues within the city?
I disagree. You can say no, because the city is a multi-million-dollar budget,
Mhm.
has a reserve account.
Mhm.
We don't like the fact, and I'm not saying this is the case with any of us here, we don't like the fact that cannabis revenue is being used. Can you please come back to us and use reserve or another account? You have that ability right now to do that. I'm not saying that. I have no problem with
And neither
cannabis
do
being
I.
used. But that's where our authority lies. Hearing about it ahead of time, I'd love the mayor to be here to tell us.
Yeah, and perhaps
But
there are
what
some.
happened- What happened, I'm sorry, you know, I want to say something.
Yeah, I do. In the same vein, like, I'll just be honest, I think this is an excessive amount of money to be spending on an opening for a school. Like, I'll say that,
Well,
I'll name that. I think after the debate that we had with the school budget, et cetera, I just think that this is trying to use my words, be diplomatic. I just,
Excessive is a good word.
I think it was excessive. I think that we could have provided or supported local businesses in other ways to have bagels or donuts or whatever there that wouldn't have cost $18,000. And I thought that it was kind of an extreme expense for that, particularly given the whole budget conversation that we had regarding schools, et cetera. I just think
That's a conversation with the superintendent and the school department.
Well, and it is, and I just think that it's a conversation that we could have potentially, if they had come beforehand and said, hey, we want to do a party, we want to have this party, we want to have some food trucks at the party, and we want to have some stuff, and we want to bring these people in, and this is what it's going to cost, we would have had an opportunity to review those expenses and perhaps provide some feedback about, well, are we sure we need this? Are we sure this is going to be appropriate? Those things, once that money's already been spent, you're right that we could say no, but that money's going to have to come from somewhere, right? That money's going to have to come from.
There's two parts to this.
Well, can I just?
You're finished, sorry.
Like that money has been spent. It's going to have to be. They're going to have to be made whole from somewhere. And if they're going to have to be made whole from somewhere, I don't see cannabis as being any less appropriate of a place to put it from as anything. But I think my views on the cannabis expenditures have been documented in other places. But like, I just think, again, we don't need to discuss this for an hour. I do think that I just need to register that if we were having this conversation ahead of time about this amount of money, particularly in the context of the budget fight, I shouldn't say fight, the
discussion.
Tense and in the extremely intense budget disagreement that we had this summer, and the fact that we are about to move into a new budget season, and just given all of that, I think I might have had some feedback. And when these things happen in a way where the money, I understand that sometimes things happen like a firefighter blows out his shoulder, right? they don't know that a firefighter's shoulder is going to get blown out. Well, now they have to spend a bunch of extra money on overtime. There's nothing you can really do about that. It's not something that's planned ahead of time. And so when those sorts of, oh, hey, a police car, it broke down. It broke and we need it, or there was a crash and now we need another one. Okay, yeah, fine. A boiler blew up. Fine. These are unforeseen things that you got to spend that money to fix it right away. And then you got to figure out how to keep that from affecting the budget. So you go to us and we work something out. But when you're talking about an event that I think was great, I had a good time. But it was, in the grand scheme of what we were talking about here, it was both expected and relatively discretionary. I don't understand why we are having this conversation now rather than, I think that the better way to do this that would have allowed for a more sound conversation about this would be for us to have had this conversation while they were planning the event, not over a month after it. And that's just all I have to say about this. It does not change the fact that I'm not going to put the city in a tough place by voting no on this. I'm just saying that moving forward, if there's something that we know is going to cost 5 figures of dollars, and we know it's going to happen, and we know what fund we're going to ask for it from, I would prefer that come to the city council ahead of that meeting and not after, because there might have been feedback from us or from the community about how to best allocate those resources, that now those conversations cannot be had because those resources were allocated. It's just a matter of how do we cover it. And I'm happy to cover it. I just do need to say this because I think that a member of the community looking on talking about an $18,000 party might wonder why we any conversations about that ahead of time. I don't think that would be an unfair thing for a community member to talk about.
I would agree with everything you're saying, except there's the school departments involved. If they didn't ask the mayor to pay for it and they decided to pay for it within their own budget, we wouldn't know about it until the end of year audit or whenever expenses were saved, because they decided it was a community event. They'd ask the mayor. She's not here, but I'm pretty sure the way this ran was the mayor was asked, can you pay for this for us? Because it's a community event, and knowing the budget is tight for the school department, she said yes. So from that point of view, that's the process that's always going to play out. It was the school department decided to spend the money. Most of the other examples you gave are examples of how we have spent money after it's been, approved money after it's been spent. This is, as you say, discretionary. And I don't disagree, but it's a school committee decision and a school superintendent decision to make this expense, right? So
it is a decision to spend that money, but if they're going to spend it in a way that requires that we take money that could be spent on other things and spend it on this instead, I think that the appropriate thing, and I'm not saying this to throw shade at anybody, like it's fine. These things happen. It's hectic being in a city, but I think that if it was going to be a thing where this money comes from here, rather than from a department's operating budget, I would have preferred to have that conversation before the funds were expended, given that it was an expected expense.
I don't know how to answer that, except the process is the process. Omar.
I think the difference is when that happened, the department head or department came to us requesting for any supplementary appropriation, and they use the money. They use the money for a line item, right? We give them a budget, and because something happened in the budget, they have to use X or Y amount of money. And because they run short in that line, that's why they came to us. In this case, it's totally different.
It's totally discretionary. It is, but and the mayor could have said, please use your own budget.
Sure.
But the point is, the mayor is the one who decides, okay, I will ask the city council to pay for it using these funds.
I do not disagree.
She's asking us. So I don't disagree, but that would, your point, I think the process would require ask the mayor to come forward. But these things are rare. In the
Mhm.
case where it's discretionary funding of something that is controversial, maybe excessive, whatever, but the decisions are made. I don't know. I don't know if I want to continue this because there's not a
I don't
solution.
want to talk for Councilor Peak, but I think his concern will be, what about if we have another mayor and then maybe have something, an event like that, and instead of spending $18,000, we'll spend $70,000. And now the concern is from the councilors will be like, boy, the mayor have the authority to do that, but maybe the $70,000 will be, we can use it in something better.
And just to say, you're right that these are very rare. And in the time that I've been on the council, I don't recall anything quite like this that came up, in that we are being asked to pay for it after the fact, but they definitely knew it was coming beforehand. That's the thing that, to me, is, again, I'm not doubting the mayor's authority to make that decision and then come to us. I'm not going to blow it up. I'm simply stating, as an elected official who has the right to talk during these things, that in the future, when these things come up, it would be my preference that if there's something you're going to spend money on and you have time to have this conversation beforehand, I'd prefer to have it beforehand. That's all I'm saying.
I have a question about the process. And sound like the councilors are going to say yes, but what about if the councilors say no? Now, if we say no, I mean, they don't have the appropriation from cannabis money. How the cities will pay those bills?
Well, the question is, do we want to pay for the event, period? Or do we want to have it paid for in some other way other than cannabis? There are other accounts,
But
so there's two ways. So if they say no, the council says, no, we don't want to pay for this, the school department should pay for it, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't want to put that on the teacher.
No.
No, but I'm saying there's two ways it can go. We could say yes, three ways, or we can say no, we want the school department to pay for it, not using money we could use for something else, or we can ask the mayor, don't use cannabis, can you use something else? Those are our options. I have no problem with this particular one. So I'm just saying, process wise, that's the process.
Yes, and I'm just saying those are our options at this point.
Yeah,
because the
well, that's what he
event
was asking.
has already happened. If the event had not already happened when we had this, we would have had the opportunity to have some other conversations here. Now, I might have looked over all the line items and said, you know what, you're right, every dollar here is completely essential, and this is a great use of funds, and it would be fine. But the point is, it's not really that. It's just that if we could have had this conversation beforehand, and if we could have, then I think we should have. And that's just, I'll leave it at that. I don't mean to drag this out any longer than it needs to be, but I do just need to register that this isn't like the order of operation that I prefer going forward if things like this are going to go down. And in the future, like, having said that, I might approach these things a little bit differently if something like this comes up again, where we had every reason to be able to discuss this before the money was spent and opted to discuss it after the money was spent.
The only issue in this whole thing is the school committee is the ones that said, okay, let's spend this money. If it was a different department, maybe the Board of Public Works, well, they could authorize enterprise funds, but it would go to the mayor. There's the school committee that makes these decisions. Goes to your point, was it excessive or not? They decided it wasn't. But I think your point is well taken regarding they have a budget issue, yet they spend this money. I don't know where I wasn't in the room when those conversations were had, but that's where it began.
Sure.
So anyway, I feel we should pay for it. So yeah, no, you're not allowed.
It could have been a timing thing too. Because
it was already spent, you mean?
Well, no, but I mean, if the school department decided this is what they were gonna do, and then after the fact, we're like, oh, well, maybe we'll ask the city to pay for it. Either
Well,
way, it would
that
have,
might have been
Okay.
exactly how it happened.
yeah.
And if that's what happened, then everything that I would say that potentially could sound like it was directed at the mayor would probably end up being directed towards that department. And I don't actually care. Like, that's, I'm not
You're just
mad
talking
at
process
anybody. This is
issues.
just a process. I'm a stickler for process sometimes. I don't know how the timing worked out. I'm sure that there's something like that. My point here is simply that someone had to know this money was getting spent
Right.
beforehand.
I mean,
Hadel.
when they started building the building, they knew there was gonna be an opening.
Well, anyway, Hadel has a question.
I have a comment. The original idea was to use construction money, and that will increase the debt exclusion. So that was that's where this whole conversation started. Again, I wasn't part of that school committee meeting. Who said what, I do not know, but it came to me as either we go for cannabis or construction money, or any other source. I refuse to appropriate money from reserve because it's taxpayers' dollars. We don't have parties for $18,000 after taxpayers' money. So the bottom line, it narrowed down to the cannabis funds.
Okay.
And that seems reasonable, but hey, just when were those conversations had?
I think it was after the meeting, after the school committee meeting, this whole started. And it was sitting in my office for 2 weeks because I needed some documentation and I did not get that documentation. And this is a very touchy expense because, it's pretty much we are partying on city's money. That's what it looked like, bottom line. And I think we have the agreement signed by cannabis establishment. So that's where this is coming out of cannabis. And I understand where Councilor Peak is coming from, that we should be doing it up front. And yes, we always practice that I don't let people overspend their account and then go back to council. They have to go to council first. But this was a unique situation where my hands were really off of school committee. So I couldn't say anything other than making sure that I have a proper documentation for my audit, and which I do have it.
The only thing I would argue, and I'm not sure if this is the mayor's argument or the school committee's argument, is that the party wasn't for the city employees, it was for the community. So they would argue that the community is what we were trying to benefit.
Sure.
Was it excessive? That's a debate.
It was a lovely event.
But it was an event for the community. So I would argue that using their money, and cannabis is tax revenue, or if we decided to use other revenues, it was for the community. But that's a debate we all have. That's a political debate, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But it was a community event. It was a great event.
Yes.
So the argument from their side might be, well, yeah, but it was a party that a lot of people attended and a lot of people liked, and this is how we wanted to treat them. Thank you for spending $109 million, 60 some of our money. So I don't have a problem. But anyway,
I mean, sure.
We want to talk about this anymore.
Not really. I mean, I just wanted to register that there's just the way, the sequence of events here, to me, probably would have voted for this if they had come forward on it, because I do think it's important to bring up or to show people the beautiful school that we built. I just think that the right way to have these conversations when it's possible, and I do think it was probably possible, is to do it up front.
And Hadel brings up a great point. This is very unique in how it's being presented. When a budget is short, they have to come to the council before she'll allow them to spend the money.
Yeah.
Correct, Hadel? That's what you were saying. It has to happen in that kind of process, which is good.
Right. And so I'm sorry, I keep adding on to this. I guess what I'm really trying to say here is, can we not do things like this more often? This is the first one I've seen like this. I'm fine voting on it. If this becomes sometimes I find that on council, like, you do things that are a little weird, and then suddenly that really weird thing becomes like more normal. And I just want to say that, like, if this becomes a normal thing where funds get spent that we could have discussed beforehand and we're talking about after, when it would be like kind of putting a department in a bad position if you voted no, if that becomes a regular thing, I'm going to probably have to take some.
Well, a lot of times we're put in that position, like we have to pay an insurance bill, or we can't pay our insurance. Now, it's not coming to us after the money's been spent, but if we don't give them the money, there's a real problem.
But that's not this.
That's why I'm saying this is unique. Most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, it's we need the money because we have to pay, and our hands are tied. Because if we don't pay for it,
Yeah.
or the city doesn't pay for it, somebody's gonna get a whole lot of problem.
Right.
Insurance or whatever, fixing the water main, whatever it is.
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to have a motion to approve $18,035 out of cannabis to pay for the Mountain View School grand opening.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor? Aye, 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 3-0. I like it when everybody's here. So Hadel, did you see my email?
Yes, I did.
I just wanted to go over these real quick. I was talking with her about, since we never got to it because we haven't had any meetings, the end of year summary, the revenues and things. Maybe it would be better if you shared them. I'm gonna try. Oh, I'm in the wrong thing. Hold on, Hadel. And I'm using a computer that I'm terrible at.
Yeah, it will be difficult for me to share because I have to remote from home to my computer and then share.
No, let me just try and do this.
Sorry.
It's just hard to share with, and my trackpad is not working very well. I forgot my mouse. Okay, I'm gonna show you what I have up. Here we go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So these,
We get a
what happened to it?
glass.
Darn it. Did it not work?
No, I was there for a
It was
sec.
there.
I know. There it is.
Okay.
You just make it bigger.
I don't know how to
There's
do
that
it.
little
That
plus.
little-
Oh, there on the bottom. I'm sorry. This trackpad is terrible.
One more. There you go.
Can you read it?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things in the revenue side that are over.
Yeah.
Like there's 235% penalties and interest on taxes. There's $319 interest on 319% here. This is what I would call surplus revenue and unanticipated, correct? Is that a fair way to put it?
Now, this goes to prior fiscal year when we originally put. If you scroll up a little bit, okay. Oh, stop. Oh, the first page.
First page, okay.
Okay. So see up top, a little bit up. I want to show you the top. Okay, stop. Oh, yeah, right there. Okay. So see the first column says local receipt. The second column here, I think it says budget estimates and then adjusted budget tax rate recap.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says actual revenue. So what is happening on this spreadsheet is we estimated budget when we were doing the budget sometime in May. When council votes the budget, expense budget gets finalized at that point. However, the revenue budget gets finalized when we do tax rate recap, or I do tax rate recap. And that's where this adjusted tax rate recap budget is coming from. When we do this adjusted tax rate recap, it's on the basis of the actual revenue. So if we are talking about 2022 fiscal year, our base information or the data is from fiscal year 2021. So when
So you're saying that's when you're basing that on 21, you're basing your budget on 21.
No, yes, budget for a revenue. So we
It's based on
cannot,
21, right?
yes, we cannot estimate more than what we received in prior fiscal year to for current fiscal year's budget. So for example, if you see penalty in lieu of taxes, it says 4 in first column, and it says 17,121.79.
I'm not sure where we are.
Yeah, right there where your cursor is. So this third section, where if you see the tax rate column, the very first column,
Yep.
look for number 4.
payments in lieu of taxes, right here, okay.
Yes. So see how it says 17,121.79?
Yep,
We did not budget for that. Why? Because this 121A agreement came during the fiscal year and we did not know how much money we are going to get at that point. But I had to put it into this category because that's what DOR asks me to do. So that's extra. We couldn't budget for it. Then if you scroll onto the page, oh, wait. So if you look at next column section, which says tax collector demands, we only budgeted $4,500, but we actually collected $74,000. The reason for that was in fiscal year 2021, during pandemic, Mayor waived the fees for those $25 or $15 demand fees on tax bills to give a relief to the community taxpayers. So we collected very small amount in prior fiscal year, but that same thing didn't happen. We did not waive those fees in fiscal year 2022. However, I can't budget in 2022 on the basis of 2021's lower estimates.
I totally understand all that. If you have a track record of surplus revenue in an account, like we're gonna get to local receipts, and it shows it over 3 or 4 years, why can't we increase our budget based on the fact we think we're gonna get more? Or is it simply being conservative budgeting, which I don't disagree with?
No, it's what happens is when we do the budget, we can't go by estimated revenue. We have to look into, it has to match at the end. So there
I
are some
understand that, but
yeah, at some revenues you can't predict. And there are only some revenues which can be predicted, and we only do the budget, and there is a DOR guidelines on these things.
Right.
So for
So,
example, if you go at the bottom, if you scroll a little bit more where it says miscellaneous.
Well, I have it, this is where I have it way over, total local receipts. That's
Yeah.
the total of all of this. And I'm just curious, you're saying even though maybe in fiscal year, I'm gonna skip the COVID, but if we have 5 years of surplus in that total local receipts, we're not allowed to say, okay, let's estimate that we're gonna get $1 million more. And I'm not sure, you're saying the DOR won't let you do that.
No, but DOR is going to let me, whatever is collected as of when we are ready to do, when we are finalizing our budget sometime in spring, whatever is collected as of that point for that fiscal year, that's the only thing we can take into consideration to estimate.
Okay.
And also 2 years in a row, we have budget cut for 1.5%. So that added up. So it was 3% reduction in the budget. So I had to lower the estimates for local receipts.
Gotcha.
So what's going to happen is 2021, we had $4 million free cash. 2022, I don't know what the number is going to be, but I'm anticipating more than 4 million, but I could be wrong on this. It's not certified yet, but we are going to see a drop in next couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in my history, it's gone up and down quite a bit. Some years we didn't get anything. 2008, I keep going back to that year. That was a terrible year. But, okay, I was just curious because I know it's hard for the mayor and the treasurer and you guys to set up your budgets, and you have to estimate the revenue because you have to balance the budget.
Yes.
And if you estimate the revenue, we've gotten so much in certain taxes every year, and we've been always lowballing that conservatively. Should we increase it so that we can give more to departments ahead of time? What you're saying is that's difficult to do.
So if I put it this way, expenses get set first and then we estimate revenues. It's not the other way.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's not the other way.
Yeah, you learn something new every day.
But if you do that and you figure your revenue doesn't match it, then you have to start cutting expenses, right? You go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
If you look at your revenues and you say, well, we can't balance, then you go back to the drawing board and say, we have to cut the budgets that we tried to do, we can't do it. Is that the process that usually plays out? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just curious, and obviously all of these surplus revenues, along with things like if our total revenue is over is a certain $1 million or $3 million over, and there's a bunch of departments that turned money back in, they didn't spend all their budget.
Yeah.
That adds up to free cash, correct?
That's only two pieces of the free cash. So free cash,
Okay.
it's any surplus which is from any surplus from departments closest to free cash. Anything over our estimated revenue closest to free cash, then that is considered as an undesignated fund balance in our accounting world. But then what a DOR does is they take that top number from as a close balance of June 30th. They deduct whatever is outstanding on personal property and real estate, because those two things are taken into consideration as a revenue budget. So they take those, so anything not collected from personal property and real estate as of June 30th, they reduce that from that top number. After that, if we have any deficits on any of the grants, special revenue, trust accounts, or agency account, those also gets deducted from that top number. What they add back is the deferred revenue for personal property and real estate, and that net amount is called our free cash.
Okay, so all of that, they have to cover the deficits wherever they may be. And I didn't
Yes.
know it would be grants too and things like that.
So
And-
everything is considered.
So on June 30th, you haven't collected all your property taxes, but you do collect it eventually. The 2021 taxes, they come in, that becomes free cash in the future year, right? In other words, you're still
it
collecting
closed.
taxes, prior year taxes, right?
Yeah, it's a prior. So whatever is outstanding, if those amounts are not outstanding, that means we collected them, and that it goes into the process of closing the balance to undesignated fund balance from revenue point of view.
Well, I'll tell you, Hadel, thank God you know what you're doing, because this is rather complicated.
It is
That's the moral of the entire conversation.
Did you hear what she said? It's the
No, I
moral of
did
this
not.
conversation, that you know what you're doing, thank God, because.
Yeah.
But I'm learning, because if I never want to be mayor, but if I were mayor, I'd say, can't we estimate a little higher revenue? Look, we've made all this extra money the last few years in revenue, more property, et cetera. I want to budget more for this department. And you're telling us the process isn't that easy. That's basically the bottom line. Okay.
So when mayor gives me the expense budget, I come up with revenue. If I can't come up with it didn't happen in last 2 years, 3 years. I've been doing this revenue estimates. If there is not enough money, then I have to tell her that you have to cut somewhere.
Well,
But
that's the only part I wanted to talk about was revenue, because that was on my mind. Is can we estimate higher revenue so that we can give our departments more money? But it's not that easy. I don't have any issue with the expenses. They look like they were properly done. I don't know if you guys looked at those reports. This was way back when she gave this to, I think, October or September. We're spending the money properly is what I'm saying, so.
yes, because we have a really strong internal controls in place. With the purchase order system, I do not let anybody overspend from their budget. And every month end, I run expense control report. Before it goes out to the departments, I make sure that they are not overspent by even a penny. And if they are, then they get a note and they have to fix it right then and there.
And you approve all of these. If you guys look at supplemental appropriations, auditor's approval,
Right.
which means you have to approve it before it gets to us, so.
Yes,
I like the
so
process.
what I check when I sign off on those appropriation, I check whether it's legit or not, whether we can pay out of whatever the revenue source they're asking us to be paid out of. And I also make sure that there is enough money to transfer those money from that account to wherever they're asking us to transfer to. Because if there is no money, it's a deficit at the end of the fiscal year. You can't deficit spend your savings account.
Okay, I just got a note from Nicole saying, I'm sorry, I missed this. Oh, boy, I forgot. It's all right. We would still be debating the cannabis one, so I'm kind of glad you missed it. Anyway, no, not really. I have nothing else on your reports. They're excellent. Maybe at the beginning of next year, Hadel will go over another quarterly report, how we're doing with revenue and expenses, but that would be in January, and you'll be able to talk about the first 2 quarters of spending. Okay?
Can I ask
Oh, wait, we have questions.
So you're saying in January 1st meeting or the 2nd meeting?
Whenever you're ready, not any meeting.
And is it only expense, or you want expense and revenue?
We usually talk about how are we doing? Do you have any concerns about our revenues? And we look at expenses too, but mostly I would be concerned if you're not hitting the revenue the way, we've never had a problem, but the way you expected it to be when we did the budget. But that's, and also those quarterly reports that's on they are dependent on you being ready to give us any information. So
yeah.
Tom and Omar, did you want to ask her a question?
Sure. And just if you might have something here too. I guess my question is, I've looked this over, and I mean, just given sort of how this process works, it makes enough sense. But I guess the question that I would ask is there anything in this report that stands out to you as noteworthy, either good or bad?
Either of you?
Either of you?
No, it doesn't. Because what happens is, because estimates are there and we know that it's done very conservatively, I get worried. I review this monthly, and I get worried if revenues are not there, or I see the percentage in the report form. My first year, I remember I didn't process that motor vehicle revenues doesn't come in till like month of February. So when I was not getting any revenue in that line, I was stressing out, oh my God, $1.8 million is on stake right now. What's going to happen next? You know, so that was my worry. But then I learned that it doesn't happen till February or March. So when those money starts coming in, it's just a good way to keep track of it. Every time it hits the 100%, I'm not worried about those lines, and majority of the time it happens. I can say it this year, but I am afraid I would be able to say this next year.
Okay.
Omar?
I just want to say that a few of the member of this committee say thank you to Hadel. I just want to say publicly, I think Hadel is doing a great job.
Thank you.
Absolutely. The amount of stress that I know that she's been through is crazy, and publicly I want to recognize that she's doing a great job, and I am happy that she is with Easthampton.
Bravo.
I will echo that very loudly. I'm happy you're with Easthampton.
Thank
And
you.
if in a future life, God says you're going to be an accountant, I will say no.
You know, you'll be surprised. I do want to do accounting because that's my passion.
Well, you have a head for numbers. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else,
Thank you so
anybody? Then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.